And it looks like we're live. Hopefully, everything's working out. Technical challenges. Just give me a heads up. Let me know that you can see me, that you can see
Hopefully,
this.
everything's working out.
Well, sorry, that was my fault. Well, it looks like everybody's here. Saying hello to a few in the chat room. Sorry, we've had an impromptu setup here, and we had some technical issues with regards to the wireless setup, so I just had to switch wireless adapters on the machine here, and hopefully we're all going. It looks like we are. So awesome. I want to say hello to MC Hammer, Dory Grace, Hillard Ward, Patricia, Beth Roper, Tracy, Stephanie, Scrub. Good to see you, Scrub. Kit Nex, Lori Chavez, I believe. Damien, good to see all the moderators here. Freeman King, Free Spirit, Heather Cooper, a whole bunch of you here. Freeman King, a bunch of new names as well. Awesome to see everybody new. Hopefully, we can give you some more information here. We're going to be covering some things, but Melia wanted to say some thank yous as well.
Yeah, we wanted to say thank you so much for watching the last video on the 7 Noahide laws. Derek and I had just started researching this very, very important topic. And the more we've researched over the past 7 days, 10 days, when we've been living, eating, breathing this stuff, we're going to have a lot more to bring you in the future with regard to who are the real Jews and some other things. And even down to some DNA testing and things that we've uncovered. But first of all, I wanted to say thank you so much for all of your valuable input. We've gotten so much response, Derek, and we've gotten some wonderful resources. We've gotten video links, YouTube links. You guys have just been spot on and giving us some new information. Some a little out there, but most of it very spot on. I wanted to say thank you so much, Ann Wood. Ann, you made a comment that was just incredible. I really appreciate that. And it was pretty lengthy, some of these comments, and I know it takes a long time for you to respond. And we try to respond to as many of those as we possibly can. We've had lots of questions. It opens up a lot of debate. One thing that we're not here to do is call out any race or be anti-Semitic. That is absolutely not on our agenda. We repeat that over and over again because Derek is of Jewish descent and I have a daughter who is being raised Jewish. So we obviously are not trying to uncover anything that would not really be true. In fact, Derek, I had the conversation with you. You said, let's talk about this. And I said, I can't talk about that yet. I'm really funny about talking about anything if I don't have a real opinion on it myself. And that's just so important to me. And I know that that's important to you too. So thank you so much for your patience with that. And we have a lot to cover today. Aipac just had their big 3-day, I think it ended today. They had their big 3-day conference and what's going to move forward with Aipac in 2019, which is the obviously very Zionist political action movement.
Yeah, the Political Action Committee, which essentially handles all the Zionist agenda in DC and around the world. So AIPAC is, and that conference is quite alarming when you listen to some of the things spoken of, and you can also, you begin to understand the agenda. So I think it's important, what Melia just spoke of is that we're not being anti-Semitic. Now here's the difficult part of this. Obviously we know that God is not a God of confusion, but the enemy is. And so this is untangling a twisted web of deceit and lies and manipulation that has gone back, from what we can tell from this research, for thousands of years, not just hundreds, but thousands of years. And so when we begin to look at this, you begin to see the words of Christ, how they're being far more confirmed than they ever were.
And much more literal than we ever even thought.
Yeah, much like literal, spot on. When he says these things, when he says, so they say they are Jews, but lie, they're a synagogue of Satan. Now you're like, oh my gosh, I understand exactly what he says. And also when he's speaking in Matthew 23:15, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye compass sea and land to make one proselyte. And when he is made, you make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves.
And there's a much deeper meaning to that. And we're uncovering it. And it's kind of crazy because we both have been just knee deep in this research, and we can't even remember at some point what all we've uncovered here. But we're going to do our best to unpack a little bit for you today. We're going to be talking to you in probably a more broad brushstrokes today, and then we'll be narrowing down and going into more detail on some of these topics later as we become more versed on them. But I think that if you have a chance, there's a YouTube channel called True News. Go back. They did a very, very nice job covering the APAC um, um, conferences over the last 3 days. So if you just want to go back and recap it, there's some commentary there during, before, during, and after. You don't have to watch that, but at least they did cover it, so you could be assured that you were seeing that from a pretty unbiased, or maybe biased kind of viewpoint, a Christian bias anyway.
Yes. So just to kind of recap of what we've learned already is that that the Zionist movement has come from, right now, is being pushed by a group called Chabad Lubavitch. And Chabad Lubavitch was founded and essentially spearheaded by Rebbe Schneerson. Now, Rebbe Schneerson died in 1994. And Rebbe Schneerson, by all, and this is the one thing that you're going to find, is that for many in the Zionist movement, they believed that he was the Messiah. They deified him, and we're going to be listening to that so you can actually hear exactly what we're talking about. So they believed that he was their Messiah and that he would lead the world. Now, the thing is what you have to understand is that the Israeli Messiah, the Jewish Messiah, the way that they see it, is not a spiritual leader. He's a political leader. And so now you would understand what the Antichrist means. And everything that you'll find that the Antichrist, the definition of what the Antichrist is within the Christian understanding of it would be the Jewish Messiah. So now you begin to see exactly how this is going to play out. But again, we have to be careful, and it's important for you to understand that in untangling this mess, this web, is that it's not about Jews, because they call themselves Jews. So when we say Jews, we always have to continually delineate between one sect of Jews and the other sect of Jews, because it's not just an extreme Islamist or an extreme right-wing Christian or anything like that. It's literally a group that usurped Judaism.
Right. Here's the funny thing. Most of you guys can relate to this. If you're from the South, I know you do. That we were walking through the yard here, the farm where we live, and we were talking about the weeds from a distance, if it's mowed right, looks just like grass, right? And we were talking about, it gives totally new meaning to the wheat and the tares growing up together, because as you're going to see with some of the videos and some of the rabbis we show you, even the Rebbe, there's very little distinction in their outward appearance at all. In other words, it would look like wheat tares growing up together, and you won't only know what they are until that time of the harvest, and that is based on their attributes. And so again, we talk about following attributes. Now on this video, you're going to see 3 different Jewish speakers, in addition to Larry King, who you know is Jewish. I think he's a very fair interviewer and phenomenal. Alan Nadler of the YIVO Institute, which is a Jewish research institute. You've got Rabbi Simon Jacobson, who was Rebbe Schneerson's actual scribe, Derek, and Rabbi Shalom Der Litzker, who is from Miami, and he headed up the Chabad Lubavitcher education arm of that location. So these folks are mourning now. Remember, they're mourning the death of their Rebbe, and whom they really consider to be their Messiah. So it's not really a long interview clip, so we're going to show some of that to you now.
Let's see.
Yeah, somebody complained. Okay, so you guys are saying that there's no sound
No
here.
sound.
Let me,
No one can hear anything.
okay. Can you hear us now? Let's try to get through the technical difficulties here.
Right.
Can you hear us now?
I can barely hear Melia. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we should be. Let me just check our settings here. Apologize, folks.
We're getting yes, 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 yes. Now you can hear us.
Now you can hear us. Okay, so
Okay.
what we need to do here.
So
then,
I don't know if they heard the opening. I can barely hear Melia. So let's back this video up. And what we're telling you now, remember, this video is in 1994. It's quite old. It's a video with Larry King, who's a wonderful interviewer. You've got two rabbis and one Jewish researcher. And you're going to find that in their commentary, they really believed that Rabbi Schneerson was the Messiah, and they were looking for a successor. And now remember what we told you last week is that for the Noahide laws to be effective or to be set in place, the Messianic age has to be ushered in. So through that lens, watch this video.
Yes, and anybody that wants to say that the Noahide laws are nothing to be concerned about because we know Christ and all that, it's not about being concerned. It's about being aware of how the scriptures will be fulfilled as what they're spoken of, beheading Christians and the persecution of Christians. That's coming, and it will come in the name of Noahide laws. And remember that it's Christ that said that the return of the Son of Man would be as in the days of Noah. Now, that brings in a whole new light as to that statement, as in the days of Noah, just like that. Right. So in the days of those laws of Noah, because those laws that were given to Noah and his sons is exactly what we're speaking of right here. So I'm going to try to share this again.
So
hopefully,
is the audio coming from this speaker? From here?
It's supposed to be coming from not from this speaker. It's actually supposed to be coming from the share computer sound. So,
okay, so we're getting the feedback that we're not hearing.
You're not hearing the audio. Let's check
right.
the audio right now.
And Christina, I enjoyed Derek more before Melia. Thank you. I appreciate that so much.
So, I'm not sure. I'm not even hearing any sound right now either. So, could you hear that? Let's just check again. Let us know. Could you hear that? So I'm going to try sharing this without just using this speaker. So I'm not optimizing the sound. So let's see whether this works. Sorry.
No sound.
Okay, hold on. You can hear us now, so let's make sure we got this.
Was passed among thousands of educational mourners and emotional mourners near the Lubavitch headquarters. The beloved and influential Rebbe is gone, but the debate over his status as a modern-day Messiah is still on, dividing a grieving community that is left with no clear successor. With us tonight from Miami is Rabbi Sholem Ber-Lipsker, an emissary appointed by the Rebbe to develop outreach programs in Florida. In New York, Rabbi Simon Jacobson, who for 15 years transcribed the Rebbe's sermons and speeches. Also in New York, Alan Nadler of the Evo Institute for Jewish Research. He has studied the ultra-Orthodox Lubavitch sect for years. What now, Rabbi Lipsker in Miami? We'll start with you.
Well, the objective of the Rebbe was for each of us to prepare the world for that period of time that we refer to as the Messianic period, to elevate the world to its proper sanctified state, to make sure that each of us is conscious and aware of a higher level of being, become closer to God, become more refined people, continue to fulfill the ways of God in this Torah. And the Rebbe, in his inimitable fashion, both through encouragement, direction, love, compassion, and every other way that a true Moses of our times conduct himself with his people, has engendered in us that desire. And though we are presently stunned and shaken and shocked Nonetheless, we know internally that that message that the Rebbe has implanted in our hearts and souls must continue.
Rabbi.
First of all, I just want to clarify here that remember that Chabad Lubavitch and their Talmudic teachings, when they speak of loving one another, they're, according to the Talmud, they're speaking specifically and exclusively about other Jews, not about Gentiles, not about Goyim. So this is where you have to really define what they say. They sound loving and they sound all politically correct, but this is a terrifying thing because you never know what they're talking about.
Right. And Derek, I think we have a visual. We did a graphic of the three clear objectives that he just read off. And those, like Derek said, they sound great. But let's go back and take a recap of these main objectives. To prepare the world for, quote, the Messianic period. Now, remember, we talked about the Noahide law cannot be enforced until the Messianic period is ushered in, until they can delineate that. That's why it's so important. So there's a reason for that. To elevate the world to its proper sanctified state. Yeah, what do you think that means?
What is proper sanctified state?
In whose eyes?
Yes. Proper sanctified state is one, according to the Talmud. So this is where you always have to go back to their own teachings.
Right.
According to the Talmud, a proper sanctified state would be where all Goyim serve the Jews as God. Literally. So also the third, ensure that each of us is aware of our higher level of being. Us doesn't include you. In fact, it would include you if you're a Goyim, your real place, right, that you don't deserve and you should not and have never had equality with them. They are an elevated state of being. They, in fact, see you as animals, and that's not my words. That's the Talmud.
Right, and we had a wonderful subscriber who listed for us.
Yes.
And you can go back on the comment section on the prior video and read these yourself.
Yes, and we can do that. And we just to give you an idea, so you understand the people that are talking on this video, that and these are all references specifically to their teachings. The non-Jews have been created to serve the Jews as slaves. A Jew may have sex with a child as long as the child is less than 9 years old. When a grown-up man has intercourse with a little girl, it is nothing. Sexual intercourse with a little girl is permitted if she is of 3 years of age.
Jews are divine. If a heathen Gentile hits a Jew, the Gentile must be killed. Hitting a Jew is the same as hitting God. That's Sanhedrin 57.
Yes. Murdering a Goyim is like killing a wild animal. Even the best Gentiles should be killed. So, I mean, we're just going into some of these teachings, but now you begin to understand who these people actually are.
Not necessarily these rabbis themselves that may not ascribe to all of those beliefs, but this is the written in their teachings. And remember, Derek, that the Talmudic rabbis are ideologically the descendants of the Pharisees. So keep that in mind when Jesus speaks against the Pharisees in the New Testament.
Yes, and we're going to, as we proceed here, we're going to clearly delineate between the Jews that don't agree, because believe me, you're going to see that there are the vast majority of Orthodox Jews do not agree with any of this Zionist movement, do not agree with Chabad Lubavitch, do not agree with Rabbi Schneerson, do not see him as the Messiah. There is a massive difference between them, but you're also going to see that there's most likely also a bloodline delineation between them. So we'll continue this video here.
Person in New York, with no disrespect, he was very ill, he was very old. Why such shock? We know of grief, but why such shock?
Because anyone that has really experienced the Rebbe personally was touched by a certain eternal message, an embodiment of eternal values. You saw the Rebbe's consistent passion, that he was all the way there. And though the mind tells you, the mortal mind and the rational mind, that there is transition and people do move on, the Rebbe symbolized something more than life. He symbolized a 3,000-year tradition that has survived all odds, a Holocaust, a Spanish expulsion, a destruction of the temple. And when you saw the Rebbe, you felt in his presence that eternity, and it was just more than human. So when you see
more than human,
anything, even an illness, and particularly a death, it just totally throws you that something so eternal could be so affected.
Alan, is this a major story beyond Orthodox Jewry?
It's a major story for the Jewish community. I don't know that it's a universal story, but here we are discussing it anyway. It's a major story because of the extent to which the Lubavitch community adored their Rebbe. They had many good reasons to adore him. He was an unsurpassed leader for that community. But it went slightly beyond the line to a cult of personality. And what we've just heard from the my two rabbinic colleagues indicates, shock at the death of a 92-year-old man, regardless of how great, and no one is contesting his greatness, indicates that he was almost deified. We heard the words eternal, the embodiment of eternity, the comparison of the Rebbe to Moses. All of this hyperbole, I think, is resulting in a deeper depression and shock than would have normally been necessary or appropriate in the case of a death of such an aging sage.
Rabbi Lipsker, is there a successor, or if you believe him the Messiah, will he be back?
Well, I just wanted to first react to the comment about the excessive mourning and shock. The fact is that there were leaders in history such as Moses and Maimonides who impacted an entire world in a most significant fashion. The Rebbe, by the reaction from world leaders who are prime ministers, presidents, and so forth, have recognized the particular strength and power that the Rebbe has and have reacted to him as the conscience of the world, not only the Jewish world, but the general world.
Is there a successor?
I
No.
believe that the Lubavitcher Rebbe is our leader, and even though he's not with us in body, he's with us in soul.
No, we live without leadership. Always we had a leadership that can tell us what to do and what's going to be. But now we have no leadership. It's a very bad show.
Rabbi Simon Jacobson in New York, who transcribed the Rebbe's sermons and speeches, do you believe him the Messiah?
The Messiah, from a Torah point of view, is a global leader and teacher who has the capacity, the ability to inspire and touch and articulate a message that will transform lives, touch souls and hearts. The Rebbe was such a man and was therefore believed by those that knew him to be that global leader and teacher.
Did he choose a successor, leave a will of any kind, leave words to be read upon his death?
No successor. There was a will, and the will basically deals with the Rebbe's personal possessions and some of the direct organizations that he headed.
In your opinion, will there be a successor?
You know, we're here today, a day after the funeral, and in the glare of the sunlight of the Rebbe, it's extremely difficult for me to speculate in any way about that.
Will there, in your opinion, Alan?
Well, I mean, based on the history of Hasidism, a Hasidic movement can't really survive too well in the absence of a Rebbe, because the Rebbe really is the lifeline and the source of inspiration for Hasidim. Obviously, based on what we've heard tonight and what we've heard in the past, a very sad day for the Lubavitchers, they are not in a position to even contemplate the appointment of a new Rebbe, which is understandable. There's a period of mourning for such a figure. He was a father figure for the Hasidim. According to Jewish law, a year is the mandatory period of mourning. I wouldn't be surprised if the question of succession isn't even discussed openly for at least a year.
Okay, so let's, to not belabor this specific video here, let me just point out that, and I'm trying to unshare here, sorry about that. When we start talking about who runs the world and the power structure of the world, when you have David Icke talking about how do such a small number of people have such massive influence, this to me as a strategist looks like a very long-term strategy that is played out. And it's remarkable that, you know, like I said, these folks here that you see are part of the power structure. When you get into the details of where their belief system comes from. Chabad Lubavitcher comes from a farther, let's say it was in the 1600s, in fact 1666, Sabbatov Zevi, which began what they believed he was also the Messiah.
Right.
And he was, he had at the time some incredible amount that he had like 1 million Jewish followers in 1666.
Which was the preponderance of the Jewish population
the
at that
vast
time,
majority.
or at least 50% of it. The vast majority of Jews thought he was the Messiah and followed his teachings very closely. But ultimately, he was issued a declarative, an ultimatum, that if he did not convert to Islam, then they would kill him. And guess what he chose?
He converted to Islam and convinced many of his followers to follow along with them. Although they didn't actually convert spiritually or in a belief system to
Right.
Islam, they just appeared Islamic. And this is a trend. And you're going to hear about this shortly because we're going to play another video of a Muslim imam speaking. Now, before you think that we have this Muslim imam speaking and that he hates Jews and Christians, well, stay tuned because you're going to hear something a little bit more detailed about what he thinks. And a realization that we were talking about, I was starting to realize that after seeing so many Jews that are opposed to Zionism, that are opposed, according to the Torah, opposed to the state of Israel, completely opposed to it.
About 80%. And you would never know that by watching the Aipac conference. You would never know that by watching the news at all.
And they don't tell you and don't bring it up.
This 10 to 20% of the people represented the majority. And these are the people who were truly in full control of Israel now and don't represent the most modern day Jews. That's why we say this is not an anti-Semitic conversation. This is a let's point out this small percentage, which is exactly what David Icke did, which is what precipitated Doreen Dotan's response to his video that we talked about in the last show.
Yeah, so what we're addressing is, and I think that we should probably come up with the term so we fully understand, is the fake Jews or the Jews that lie. That these aren't the real Jews. These are not them. The ones that we're showing, the ones that we're talking, they're not the real Jews. And it becomes very evident as you begin to get into this.
Well, even Jesus pointed out what a real Jew was. He said, if you knew the Father, you would know that I am the one he sent. But because you don't know the Father and you strain out the net, you don't let anyone else go in, you don't know me. So he was pointing them out even then, making that differentiation, because obviously that's all he talked to was the Jewish population.
So we're going to go to this video, and I think that you're going to find this is where things get very interesting as to where this came from. And as we go through, as I said, we're just uncovering things, and we're not talking about, we've uncovered some things that are still so startling to us, we can't even talk about them yet. And until we actually get some more confirmations and some more data and uncover this, we're not going to be able to bring those up. Melia is very uncomfortable doing that. I'm uncomfortable doing that. I don't want to show things or castigate somebody or even have you think that we're doing that, because we're not. We're trying to find the origins of where this came from, and it becomes abundantly clear in this video. So
and it's the ideology that you're tracing. Remember, when we talk about following God, we look at attributes. So that's what you have to follow in this maze. It's like a bundle of fishing line that is all bundled up. It's almost impossible to untangle it. So we're trying to do that. We're attempting to untangle it one strand at a time, and it can be a little bit convoluted. So what video are we watching now?
This is going to be...
Oh, the Imam.
Yeah. So this is the Imam. Now, look at the title of this. Who hijacked the Jewish faith and why?
Why? That's the why is the most important part.
Shortly after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, something very mysterious happened in that part of the world that historians have chosen to bury. A tribe called the Khaza chose to embrace Judaism. And so the world witnessed for the first time the very strange phenomenon of a non-Semitic Semitic people becoming Jews, non-Semitic.
So note that these are non-Semitic
Non-Semitic
people.
Jews.
These are not Jews, which goes to they say they are Jews but lie. So they are non-Semitic. So when we're talking about the ones that are running the Zionist movement, they are non-Semitic. So we can't be anti-Semitic in disclosing them.
Becoming Jews. The genetic research is available on the internet. Anyone can study it. You had conferences, medical conferences, which were organized to study these people, their genetic composition. They had a genetic composition which was unique in all of mankind. No people in the world were like them. This is scientific research.
So make a note of that. They have a genetic composition that is unlike anyone else in the world. They are non-Semitic, and they have a genetic composition that is unlike anyone else.
And Doreen also confirmed that if you go back, and now that brings us into more light of what she had to say about we are not the same.
Yeah, we are not you.
The same.
Yeah, we weren't created. You were created. So they, whoever they were, are unique. Now, we're not going to draw a conclusion here today, but these are questions for you. We're going to ask these questions. Who are these people? Where did they come from? Why are they different than everyone else? Because this guy's not lying, and we're going to get into this shortly.
And these people, the Chazar, chose to convert to Judaism, but they did so not for any religious reasons. They were not so much interested in the Kitab and to follow the law. They embraced Judaism for purposes of political expediency. They were sandwiched between Islam and Christianity, Byzantine Christianity, and they chose Judaism. These European Jews who have no racial, biological connection with the Banu Israel multiply. وهم من كل حدب ينسلون. They multiplied and multiplied and breeded to such an extent that today 9 in every 10 Jews in the world, 90% or more, are European Jews. They outnumber the Semitic Jews by 9 to 1 or 10 to 1.
Did you hear that, what he stated? That they outnumber the Semitic Jews 9 to 1.
These European Jews, if you look at the list of names of Nobel Prizes for science, for literature, you name it, you will find that these are people who far exceed the rest of mankind in their intellectual brilliance, in their academic achievements, in their scientific research.
Now that's important to note. That's why I'm going to stop on these things. But you note that they far exceed the rest of mankind in their academic achievements, their intellect, their inventions,
their scientific research. So this man is clearly not denigrating this population.
Yeah, he's saying they're more brilliant than all of us. Right. So again, that brings into question,
where do they come
Where do they come from?
They are a people different from the rest of mankind. And then you find that these Chazar who became Jews also chose to become Christians. So you have the Chazar infiltrating the camp of Judaism and infiltrating the camp of Christianity as well. And from the ranks of these Chazar Jews and Chazar Christians, the emergence of the Jewish-Christian alliance can be traced.
Hence Zionism.
It is this Jewish-Christian alliance, Chazar, which eventually gives birth to the Zionist movement. The Zionist movement has absolutely nothing to do with Banu Israel.
So keep that in mind.
Zionism is not Judaism.
Yes. So they are not anti-Semitic. They are anti-Zionism. Now, the crazy part about that is you're going to learn that there are a lot of real Jews who are also the same. And they agree with Islam and these imams that are against the Zionist movement.
Right.
It's amazing how clear this stuff becomes. And it's really something that now you can really see why the world is where it's at and
Right.
what's been happening.
Is an essentially and an exclusively European achievement. It is these Chazar who, having become Jews, first Jews and then Christians, who built an empire that was the most powerful in Europe and Central Asia. And when the armies of Islam had simultaneously defeated the two superpowers in the world, the Persian Empire and Byzantium, and had emerged as the most powerful military force in the world, Khazar blocked our way. We could not defeat them. And so it would be quite correct to say that the Khazar demonstrated a military power without equal in the world at that time. It is from this part of the world that they spread out. They spread out to Eastern Europe, they spread to Russia, and eventually crossed the sea to the United States. And they are at the heart of the revolutions which transformed Europe.
Now you're understanding when he's speaking about that they've traveled all over and they are the heart in Eastern Europe and Central Europe and Western Europe, in the United States, all over the world, that this strategy has played out and they have taken over every kind of power structure. It isn't that they wanted to own media companies or be involved in media companies. They understood that in order for them to execute on their strategy, that they would need to run them. And how do you run them? Because the Talmud is Babylonian. So the Talmud is Babylonian teaching. And in these Babylonian teachings, one of the things that you're going to learn, if you don't already know this, is that Babylonian magic is money as well. So a big part of it is the economic systems, being able to steer people, change people, guide people, and make them do what you want to do based on their finances. All you have to do is control their food, how they eat, and you control the people. And you control how they eat and what they eat by how they get their food. So if they have convinced people that it's easier to make money than it is to grow crops and to live for yourself, which they've done, and they've also systematically eliminated your abilities to live off of their systems, well, this is a very systematic way of taking control of the narrative, of the truth, of altering higher education, of altering priests, imams, Christian pastors and church, everything across the board is run by this strategy. And it's very easy to see how that would take place. So let's continue with this, because this guy is, it's just truly remarkable.
From Christendom into modern Western civilization, they are at the heart of the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, which overturned Christianity in Russia. They are at the heart of the French Revolution, in consequence of which the back of the Christian church is broken, the prohibition of riba. is now consigned to the garbage bin. And they're at the heart of the creation of the Zionist movement. It is these Khazar, Jewish and Christian, who now move to the Holy Land, assisted by a strange and mysterious Jewish Holocaust.
Sorry if you guys can't hear me very well. So hopefully you can hear me better. We only have one microphone here that's picking up everything. So we'll make sure that it's up close. So what he's saying here is that these people are at the heart of Zionism. He says that they've infiltrated every other religion, essentially, which is why we have so many Christian churches that speak and they say, oh, you must support Israel and the state of Israel. When the vast majority of Semitic Jews, true Semitic Jews, oppose the state of Israel, oppose Zionism, oppose everything that is going on, which is why Netanyahu has so much resistance. He has to continually battle these things. And you're not aware of these things. You're not aware of these massive protests of Semitic, true Semitic Jews. You're not aware of them because the media doesn't show them because it's owned by the non-Semitic Jews. So you can begin to understand how easy this is for them to control the narrative. But let's listen to the last part of the Imam's words here.
And the history of that will one day be revealed on Judgment Day. How much was their input into the Holocaust? So that you have an exodus now of these European Jews to the Holy Land. When the state of Israel comes into being, who it is who controls power in Israel? Not the Oriental Jews, the darker skinned Jews. No, they are second-class citizens. The ones who control power in Israel are the European Jews.
Let me go to his last piece here so you can hear this.
Because amongst the European Christians and European Jews, there will be those who become Muslims, there will be those who are our friends and allies. Do not make the mistake of declaring of all Jews that they are your enemies and all Christians, they are your enemies. That will be quite foolish.
So he's pretty clear in telling you that it would be foolish to declare all Jews or all Christians or any other sect of religion to be your enemies, that would be quite foolish. Now, the important part that I think that it's to understand is that there has been lines drawn in the sand where they say, oh, well, there's an issue between Christians and Islam or an issue between Islam and Judaism, when there really isn't, because there are places around the world and there are times where they have all lived together cohesively. In fact, in Palestine itself, you have Jews, you have Christians, and you have Muslims that live amongst each other right there in Palestine. And they are all denigrated equally by the Zionists within Israel. So this is, it's truly startling at what is taking place. That, sorry, let me pause this a little bit here.
I'm going to back out so everyone can hear you and concentrate on you, Derek, because we had some microphone issues. Thank you guys for allowing me to participate. I'm going to back out over here.
So right here, we've got the 23andMe. I'm going to bring this up. So something that we found here, 23andMe backpedals on Khazar theory, but the alt-right eats it up anyway. Now, this is where they had on doing the DNA, so in tracking down these folks, doing the DNA research, when Jews wanted to find their own heritage, which I completely understand. They want to know where they came from, and they want to find where, you know, which family, which bloodline, which tribe within the tribes of Israel are they from. And in doing so, many of them started to find out that they are of the Khazars. But they then backpedaled on this because they actually mentioned that it was Khazar. But if you, then you do the history of the Khazarians, you find out that they're not really Jews. So what many Jews were discovering is that they weren't of Semitic bloodlines. And that was incredibly troubling for them. So imagine this. And they said, and then they retracted it, they backpedaled, and they sent messages to people that they had provided these DNA results to. And they said that they were going to categorize it in one lump sum as being European diasporas, so that they were the European diaspora. So then all of a sudden you could go back to scripture and you could track and say, okay, the diaspora were scattered. Well, that must have been where they went. And so they could continue to keep the illusion that they were actually of Semitic bloodlines. And so this is what we're discovering. We haven't found all of the facts within this, but we are discovering these facts. And the mere fact that 23andMe was willing to decimate their actual business model itself is incredibly troubling. That they're willing to alter their business model, and their excuse was that it was politically destructive, or that it would be incredibly upsetting to people. So they were willing to be politically correct, but tell you a non-truth about your lineage in order to do so. So that completely destroys the authentic business model of 23andMe. So what was it that was so big, so powerful, so destructive, or so disconcerting to people that they would be willing to wreck their own business model? And with that, as we continue on this, so when we want to talk about, and you don't want to, as we've said, don't want to categorize people as being Jews and saying that they're not Jews. We don't really know all the specifics of this, but we do know that there is a massive amount of people that have a completely different opinion about this that are of Semitic bloodlines, or apparently are. And there are thousands of them that protest the the Zionist movement, thousands of them, but you don't see those on the news and you don't hear about them. So you're going to hear about them where? Here on Al Jazeera. So this is a rabbi. So let me play this here. I've got no volume. I'm having all sorts of issues here with things today. I apologize for that. Crazy no volume. All of the demons are coming out today. Technical. Let me see if I can get this. Oh, sorry, folks. I've completely lost my audio entirely. Let's do this. I'm going to change speakers here. I still got nothing. Let's see. Okay, probably not going to be as good at audio, but we'll give this a shot.
And it will be catastrophic results, and Zionism has brought catastrophic results, and it can be worse.
Today on Talk to Al Jazeera, Rabbi David Weiss explains why Zionism and Judaism are not necessarily the same thing. Rabbi, first of all, thank you for talking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to be on your show.
Your most distinctive feature that I have noticed in seeing you in the media are the signs that you wear on your lapel. Please explain.
This is a sign that conveys the message of what it means to be a Jew. As it says, a Jew, not a Zionist, and pray for the speedy, peaceful dismantlement of the state of Israel. And then it's repeated nkusa.org outside for people to go further and see the website, and then to see it's in Arabic, the same message.
Okay, so not to belabor this gentleman, but you just heard that he wants a peaceful dismantlement of the state of Israel. So don't think that all of the Jews, particularly the Semitic Jews within Israel, want a state of Israel because they believe it is against the Torah. They believe it is against the true teachings of the Torah, but it's certainly not against the teachings of the Talmud. And here in DC, you see many protests here. You'll see the protests here of thousands of actual Jews. This is them protesting in Washington, DC, the actual state of Israel. Now, why is it that you don't see this on the news? Why is it that you don't hear about this? Why is it you don't hear about, and this has hundreds of thousands of Jews throughout the world against Zionism. So this is really what we're trying to go through. We're trying to find the details of this and why. What are the differences between these folks? Who are they? Where do they come from? What's in their DNA structure? What DNA structure is that? And who are the people behind this that ended up starting things like massive wars, the extermination of the attempted extermination of the Jews in the Holocaust? Who were the Jews that they were exterminating? Who was running it? Who was financing Hitler? Who was financing Henry Ford? Who was also supporting Hitler? Who was Rothschild? What was the Rothschild's family involvement within all of those things? So these are the questions we're just getting to the bottom of. And we hope to be able to do more and more of that. Now, I would encourage you to take a note of this, and I'll provide some links in the community section after the fact for all of this. But the battle of the world Jewry against Zionism is something that you should take a look at. Particularly, you should absolutely watch this Al Jazeera interview with Rabbi Weiss. Zionism has created rivers of blood. Also, the 23andMe, I'll provide these links, 23andMe, about the Khazars, where they come from. And you can also look up, and I'll include these links in there as well, the scientist, and this is the scientist, genetic roots of the Ashkenazi Jews. And it says most Ashkenazi Jews traditionally believed to have descended from the ancient tribes of Israel may in fact be maternally descended from prehistoric Europeans, not Semitic bloodlines at all. So you can see why 23andMe would find this to be so difficult. But it's something that we're going to get to the bottom of. It's something that I knew that I would ultimately be talking about. And that I would have to talk about the difficult things. These are not easy things to discuss, but we will continue. Sorry, I've got a guest here. I was going to end the show anyways. I love you very much. You'll hear from us soon.